Thank you. As chair of the Northampton School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We're utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Northampton School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number, 646-876-9923, webinar ID 950-3054-5769. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the SAU21 at www.sa21.org. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there's a problem with access. If anyone has a problem, please call 603-926-8992, extension 114, or email dtuite, DTUITE at SAU21.org. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes are taken during this meeting will be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states they're present, please also state whether there's anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. We will now take a roll call.
Greg Duffy.
Present and alone.
Martin Tavisian. Yes.
Present and alone.
Nermina Peterson.
Present alone.
Cindy Burke.
Present and alone.
Thomas Von Jess is not with us tonight. And we have Kayla Hyatt as well.
Present and alone.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Sorry, I butchered your last name there. Had to spell it out. All right, welcome, Kayla. I think this is the first time you're going to sit through a little bit of our board here, so you get a little taste of all the pomp and circumstance, and we will get to you in a little bit for an update. But right now, we're going to go to questions and comments from those in attendance. So public comment on the agenda items. That seems to be a little out of order, Bill, to our normal agenda, but I don't have a problem.
Where would you like that?
It's usually after a couple items, but
We can certainly postpone it till then.
that's fine. We'll get to the agenda. I just glanced over there, caught me by surprise. So I see we have 5 attendees, and so Deb, I think if they have questions or comments, they can raise their hand and contact you.
Are you doing public comment now, or did you just say that you were going to hold off? Was I wrong on that?
No, I'm sorry. I commented that it's a little sooner than normal, but we're fine sticking to the agenda.
Okay, so one moment. I'm going to share. Give me 1 second.
Sorry for the confusion.
That's okay. I apologize as well. I'm not sure if I can get this.
You got it.
So I'm new to this, so be a little patient with me. I would like to remind people about the public comment procedures, comment on agenda items other than in-person school plan, maximum of 15 minutes for public comment, board vote required to extend the 15 minutes, 3 minutes per individual. Comments, including complaints regarding individual employees or individual students, be directed to the, of course, I can't see the side of this because my thing is in the way. To the superintendent in accord with the complaint grievance resolution processes set forth in the school board policies KE and/or KEB. Members of the board are without authority to act independently as individuals in official matters. Thus, in most instances, any board response will be deferred pending consideration by the full board. The board desires that all speakers strive to adhere to the ordinary norms of decorum and civility.
And Deb, the only thing I'll add, because that slide was originally made for the high school meeting, is that for this one, that any agenda item is open for public comment, including anything on the in-person student learning model.
Thank you, Bill, for clarifying that. I did also notice that from the high school, and I was going to ask the board if we would open that to any comments. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
So for anyone who wishes to make a public comment, please use the Zoom feature to raise your hand. And when you're called upon, please state your full name, your address, your affiliation to the school, such as parent, staff member, etc.
Looks like a lighter crowd tonight. Okay. Any responses, Deb?
No. I see no
All right.
response this time.
I think we'll move on then, if everyone's okay with that. All right, next item is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from November 5th meeting.
Second.
So that was Martin and Nermina.
Yes.
Okay. So Cindy Burke.
Any further comments or questions on that? Nope. Okay, we're ready for a roll call.
Sorry about that. Cindy Burke,
Yes, approved.
Greg Duffy,
Yes.
Martin Tavishian,
Yes.
and Nermina Peterson.
Yes.
Vote taken.
Thank you. Okay, next, correspondence and commendations.
So I think all three of the administrators at the school have some. So maybe we'll Aisha, then Becca, then me. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Um,
Let me grab it. So my accommodations are really for my special education staff, specifically my case managers, related services providers, both those that are Northampton School and SAU 21 providers, and also my contracted providers and educational associates. This year has definitely been a different year for everyone involved, but these professionals have been providing both in-person and remote special education services to all Northampton students. They've demonstrated immense flexibility needed during a pandemic to work with teachers that they don't normally work with, specifically with teachers in RLA and Seabrook Middle School, so that they can ensure that special education services are provided. They have adjusted their specially designed instruction processes and models to meet the needs of all students with IEPs, and also to adhere with our COVID-19 protocols. In certain cases, they've taken on additional responsibilities, such as taking on additional students that weren't on their caseload, or taking on students that aren't in their grade pods to make sure that their services are being met. And they're just overall providing services during this time without skipping a beat.
All right, looks like I'm next. So I would like to thank the many staff and faculty members that volunteered their time to support student government and the 7th and 8th grade students during Game On. Kayla will share more about that in a moment. Particularly Mrs. HB, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Yetton, Senor J, Mr. Zaliga, Mrs. Sharples, Ms. Karen Donahoe, Mrs. Zaves, Mr. Garner, Ms. Carew, Mr. Pope, and Ms. DePietro, And also a big special thank you to PAL for their support with this. Specifically, Angie Lombard set up a donation site for us through PAL so that the students could use this as a fundraiser for their class gift and other activities. And then finally, Ms. Herlihy for setting up the NHS Hour of Code website so that all of our students would be able to participate next week in this national event.
Thank you. I would like to tonight recognize Nurse Mara for her just unending vigilance and attention to the details and communication with staff and families during this pandemic. She's busy on nights and weekends. She's analyzing the impact of any potential cases. She's following up on the health screeners, following up with tests, and lots of folks have submitted tests to her, and she's keeping track of all of that and just doing a great job. So thanks to Nurse Mara. I have a shout out today also for Matt Ferreira for like his work all the time, but specifically so that the board is aware that Matt's done really great work in securing some reimbursement funds for the unexpected expenses associated with COVID, and Northampton School was the recipient of a good deal of money that really helped defray the costs of the tents and some of the other things that we've had to spend money on. So those were, that's much appreciated. And then we also wanted to recognize Dr. Lupini and thank him for his steady leadership and service to SAU 21 and his empathy for families, colleagues, and students, and his vision for helping SAU 21 be the best it can possibly be. So we actually have a list of the 21 things that we feel Dr. Lupini will miss about SAU 21. Would you like to hear them? Yes, 21 things Dr. Lupini will miss about SAU 21. Number 1.
Rhonda.
Number 2, that drive up 95 listening to podcasts.
Yes, very much.
Lunch from Las Olas.
Oh, yeah.
Matt's super dry humor.
Seabrook Elementary and Middle School staff. Seabrook kids.
Ice cold soda from CVS. David's Way with Words. Driving south on 95, listening to podcasts. Dinner at Las Olas.
Winnicott staff and students. Barnard School staff and students.
Rhonda.
Caroline's Kindness.
Lincoln Ackerman School staff and students.
5 school boards means 5 times the fun.
Northampton School staff and students.
Any meal from Las Olas.
Rhonda.
Yeah.
Principals meetings, and the fact that we appreciate you so. So you can't really see this, but we have 5 ornaments from each town.
Oh,
So
that's
there's one
nice.
from Northampton. This says Sandy Claus is coming to Hampton Beach. Woo! Sandy Claus is coming to Seabrook Beach. Can you believe it? And there's one more from Southampton. Woohoo! So
Very-
we'll figure out a way to drop these off for you.
Thank you. That's very kind. And clearly, I've been talking too much about where I go for lunch and my drives to and from work. Thank you very much. It's very kind.
Thank you, Sue. I'd also like to thank Dr. Lupini, Bill, for all your hard work and dedication and attention to detail. You've elevated our organization and you've put us on a path, and we now have a good bar of reference. You were much needed when you got here. We were in a mess, and it's amazing all the work that you and your staff that you quickly put together and cut through the red tape and managed to get stuff done. I always have sort of joked about the glacial pace of education, and you've proved me wrong in a few cases, much to my excitement. So I really appreciate the dedication. And we're going to miss you, but you know, we've talked, and happiness in life first and foremost. And so we wish you the best of luck. And if there's anything we can do along the way, just pick up the phone and don't be shy.
I will. Thank you, Greg. That's very kind. Thank you.
Any other correspondences or commendations? Okay, moving on. We have our student representative report. Kayla.
Hello, it's nice to see you all over Zoom. This month, student government continued doing weekly announcements. It has been wonderful to see students and teachers looking forward to viewing them. Also, student government assembled a Veterans Day memorial and video that we shared with the community. The video contained clips of many different things, including footage of student government members interviewing veterans. As a special surprise, we were able to contact Officer Pops, who is currently deployed in Afghanistan, to interview him and include him in our video. The video also had the Pledge of Allegiance, caps, and photos of student government working on the memorial. To make the memorial, we asked all of the NHS students to fill out an index card with a picture, a note, or something that reminded them of Veterans Day. Then we took 6 large pieces of wood and used rollers to paint them blue, because that is the color that is in every single logo of all the branches of the military. Finally, we glued and Mod Podged all the cards down to the wood so that the index cards would be waterproof. The memorial was located outside of the greenhouse where students, teachers, and parents could look at it. I am so happy that our school was able to come together and honor veterans this year. In addition, 7th and 8th graders participated in an event called Game On this afternoon from 1 to 3. Mrs. Herlihy, the elementary school technology teacher and student government co-advisor, set up a website for the event. It included individual links to each game Zoom. Students could go to the website, choose a time slot, and click on the game that they wanted to play. This event took place during our WIN block, What I Need, when 7th and 8th graders typically have the option to take different classes like Spanish 2 and math counts. Teachers were very generous and volunteered their time so that this event could take place. There was lots of participation and it looked as though everyone had fun. I personally did. It was so fun and such a great way to connect students with their classmates and their current and previous teachers. However, I must admit it was also bittersweet. It was a bit sad to see the effort that has to go into any social interaction we have while both learning and socializing with friends and family remotely. When we do get to see each other in a social situation, we all have a sense of loss as we realize how few and far between these opportunities are. This week, 6th and 8th grade students took a math standardized test over the computer. I asked one 6th grader if testing at home was more or less stressful than testing at school, and she told me that it was way less stressful than a classroom testing environment, and that her mind was much more focused on the test. I found this interesting, and I thought that it was a positive thing to share with you about learning at home. Thank you so much for your time, and do you have any questions?
Thank you, Kayla. Any questions for Kayla from the board? You got off easy tonight. No questions for you, Kayla.
Great report, Kayla. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, as we move on to our next agenda item, our school council update. Kayla, you're certainly welcome to continue as long as you want with us. And if you feel like you need to get going to do some homework or some chores or something, feel free to sign off, but you're welcome to stay.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Good night, Kayla. Okay, next is our educational educational update. And we have a report from school council.
So the school council report's pretty quick. We had our meeting last month, and we had a really great conversation about climate and culture, and you know, how the pandemic has impacted our progress and our ability to maintain that positive climate and culture. We read an article from Ed Week about how teacher educator morale has been impacted because of the pandemic, and had each grade level, each team shared out some successes and some challenges. And we planned some just kind of fun community builders among the staff to try to maintain that strong momentum. So that was the focus of our meeting this last month.
Thank you. Any questions for Sue? No questions. Okay. Must have been a long week for everybody. Moving on. Continuing business, update on return to school. Sue, do we have an update, or Dr. Lapini, an update on our return to school?
Susan, do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we do. We have, your administrative team we each have prepared a few things to say, and kind of outlined our steps. And then I don't know if Dr. Lapini would like to speak after that or
Sure.
before that.
After.
Okay. So I have a short something to say, then Becca, then Aisha, and then we'll go over the steps, and then I guess Bill. So I just would like to start off by saying that the pandemic has presented us with many challenging situations that have required difficult decisions and detailed planning. We've done this with two main objectives in mind: keeping students and staff safe and healthy, and continuing to provide high quality instruction that leads to student achievement. At Northampton School, we're proud of our team of committed and skilled educators. As with all schools, Northampton is on a journey to ensure a climate and culture of trust and excellence. I've been told that building back trust is not an easy task, and have seen firsthand the fruits of this work. We have relationships in a triad of school, community, and board partnerships that have required nurturing and a commitment to trusting relationships. It is our sincere hope that we do have your trust as we work through what hopefully will be the late stages of this pandemic and its effects. We anticipate being able to increase in-person opportunities for middle school students in 2021. And at the same time, we must pay close attention to the risks and benefits of making changes in an ever-changing environment.
I'm up next. So over the last few years, I've watched the school board purposely build a strong leadership team for NHS. We have very complementary skill sets and decades of combined school leadership experience in elementary, middle, and high school settings. I'm really proud to be a part of this team and very grateful that you have made me a part of it. While Susan wakes each morning revisiting each nuance of the protocols and structures for students and faculty safety, and Aisha plans for the needs of our special education students, I'm tasked with ensuring that our students receive the highest level of curriculum, instruction, and assessment possible during this pandemic. We've been confident that in our current model of remote instruction, our middle school students can achieve their most important learning objectives from last spring and for this academic year. In planning for our in-person asynchronous days to start in January, we recognize that this asynchronous day will reduce the amount of curriculum we can cover, but understand that it's an acceptable trade-off. We're planning executive functioning supports for our students and meaningful learning experiences that can be done independently. It will involve a pretty significant change for one of their remote learning days, but we're committed to minimizing any associated learning losses and maximizing the day's benefits for our students.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So planning for the transition from remote instruction to in-person instruction really affects the students who are receiving special education services both in person and remotely. So the opportunities to provide that same level of consistency in the scheduling of services needs to be considered greatly. So under the current middle school schedule, special education teachers and case managers, related service providers, and educational associates have made themselves available in ways in which they were not in the spring and the summer remote learning periods. And we can all agree that in-person instruction is what we're striving for. This transition to 1 day per week for each middle school grade will greatly affect how we provide those services to ensure that the students that remain remote receive the services that they need, and also the students that are coming in for in-person academics receive their services as well. And some of that consideration includes a possible domino effect with our related service providers. So if if a student that's receiving services in the elementary grades requires in-person, but a student that was in the middle school grades was receiving remote and now they're in person, it's really that the related services provider and the case manager and myself, we need to make sure that we're considering those services for both students. So at this point in time, the special education case managers are working very collaboratively with the middle school teachers to make sure that this transition from full remote to 1 day in-person instruction is as positive of an experience for all involved. And this work requires careful consideration of the needs of all the students at Northampton School.
So in thinking about what our plans are, the step-by-step, we'll go through the steps and the timelines that we have planned for now. So step one, we're in the planning mode right now. We've just finished up getting the updated survey results from families, because the original survey asked if families would send their students back to school, and it appeared to be, send your students back full time. So we wanted to get accurate numbers for the students who would come back just 1 day per week. So we sent a survey out. Kelly did have to call some families to get some answers. We didn't have 100% responses, but she's called everyone so that we have almost 100% right now. The teachers are in the process of planning for groups, making those groups up, finalizing what the schedule looks like. We have the timeframes all built into that schedule. It will be the same hours as the elementary schedule so that we can accommodate transportation. So that would be the 8:25 to 1:25 time. That's step two, arranging for transportation, seeing if there's an impact in the numbers of students that potentially would be on the buses. So far, it looks like about 50% of the families who indicated their children would come for an in-person day would like to use the bus for transportation. So we'll have to take a look at each run and see if our numbers will have enough of an impact that we might have to ask for a student to adjust a run so that the numbers are we don't have an empty bus and a bus that's too full. So that's step two. Step three is the physical piece of moving the furniture, moving the materials, taking out the extra furniture in rooms, setting up the desks, setting up we've ordered the plexiglass shields for each desk, and our custodial staff has a real good sense of how to space the furniture and what furniture needs to come out. Step four is actual implementation beginning January 11th, and to begin to assess the effectiveness and what's working well, what are things that we need to adjust. Step five would be considering those next steps based on effectiveness and current health conditions. Sort of like late January, we figure we'd be able to have a good assessment about how things are going. And then step six is making those next plans for the next steps. We have had some hopeful signs. We haven't completed all of our middle school assessments, but we had talked at one point with you all about the fact that some of our youngest kids had showed some learning losses that we were able to, or we're working really hard on accelerating progress so that we can make some of those gaps up. The middle school schoolers are engaging in math assessments during this time, and we had the results back from our 8th grade math assessment, and the results were really encouraging. We did not see a significant learning loss at all. In fact, we have 85% of the students are at or above benchmark, and many of them are in the high percentile ranges, like over the 60th percentile for achievement. Just 5% on the watch, which is just a little bit behind, and 10% who would require interventions, and those are students that are already identified and already have significant support built into their days. So that was really good news for us. I know it's just one data point, but it's an encouraging data point. Math is one of the areas that you can often see learning loss because of the complexity of the instruction and the materials. Becca can speak better to that than I can, but we felt this was a really encouraging sign that what we're doing so far has been working, and we're ready to take the next step to have those in-person experiences and hoping to make everything work and then assess and move on. Dr. Lupini?
Yeah, thank you, Susan. So the thing I want to say a couple things here, not just necessarily about Northampton, but I want to help you to understand some of what principals who've just been doing amazing work, their teachers, their other administrators, and our principals have been doing amazing work. And we've had a lot of concern expressed about the increased number of cases in our communities. And I continue to say to people that while that number is important, it's not nearly as important as the impact that a single case can have on a school, right? So if we have X number of cases in the community of Hampton, that's much less relevant to me than if one of those cases somehow has a connection to the school. And so you've seen some of that if you're following our other schools. I just want to say that, just to give you the scope of this, that I was involved in at least one conversation with, I was involved in at least a conversation on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of Thanksgiving break that created what Beth Rossi has come to characterize as Swiss cheese schools, meaning a particular grade span is out, a grade level is out, a class in a grade level is out. This one's out through the 7th, this one's out through the 5th, this one's out through the 10th. And that's what our world looks like right now. Seabrook Elementary, to go back to my first comment, was essentially closed down by one case in a particular role that spills across all the grade levels and wasn't able to be contained to a particular grade level or class or grade span. And so it's always a matter of that. We're concerned about the cases going up. I mean, you probably know that we delayed the implementation of the high school plan, largely because even though our high schoolers are not in, when I wrote the letter yesterday, we knew of at least 9 positive cases among our high school students. I will tell you that by the time the letter went out, that was 12. In the half an hour between writing it and getting it out. And so we pushed back the implementation of that plan. David or Susan or others can show you that we've seen a corresponding, and maybe this is more about the numbers in the communities and the numbers in the states, we've seen a corresponding set of requests from parents to stay in the remote learning academy at the elementary level. We thought we were going to have one set of numbers a month ago. That has changed markedly over the course of a month to more students who were in the remote learning academy at the elementary level wanting to stay. If you saw my high school letter, we did a survey with high school parents about a month ago, and about 15 to 17% of them were reporting that they wanted their kids to stay remote. Bill McGowan needed to do a different survey more recently in order to actually figure out how many kids he was going to have in the building, that kind of thing. And in the course of that 2.5-ish weeks, that number jumped to 25%. So 1 in 4 parents is telling us at the high school level that they don't want their children in face-to-face situations right now at all. The good news along with this is we had a conversation today at Southeastern's meeting about where teachers are going to fall in the administration of vaccine. And given that they're considered essential workers, we could very much be having a conversation through by March about being able to open schools because teachers will be considered essential workers and will be eligible for, now we don't have that state plan yet, but that's some of the preliminary talk and some of the preliminary timeline on when we may be seeing vaccines. So I just want to applaud the administrative team. You have the principals across the SAU because they are dealing with a set of parts. I'd love to say that they move every day. They actually move many, many times within the day on them in terms of cases or in terms of particular data they have, or the changing nature that Caroline can speak to of the guidance that we get from DHHS. We reviewed a new set of guidance with principals at a meeting on Tuesday, and by yesterday, that guidance had changed again. And I'm not criticizing anybody when I say that. We're in the early stages. It doesn't feel like early stages someday, but we're in the early stages of this pandemic yet, of understanding of this disease. And so of course those guidance documents are going to change, but they continue to change. And right, Caroline's typing in the comments that, and I saw this earlier, that they changed today on us again after we'd reviewed them with principals. So, you know, I think the plan Susan's laid out here in terms of getting to that first phase of the middle schoolers, trying to hold on to the elementary students being in school, and we are trying very hard. And at some schools right now, we are really struggling with that. It may not last because we have so many grade levels or so many classes within grade levels that have been out or continue to be out, or we know we're going to go at, right, all those kinds of things. And then planning phase 2 from there. We thought we had a plan at the high school. We still do have a phase 1 and phase 2. I'm not sure where essentially they're gonna end up starting, and we have a similar kind of plan at Seabrook. And the one piece I want to add here is that you really can't compare those situations. Seabrook has a separate team for each grade level. You do not. Hampton Falls was able to implement a cohort for 6th, 7th, and 8th, and they have a team of teachers that teaches 7th and 8th. And so you might say, if they can do that, why can't we? We have a team of teachers for 7th and 8th. You have more kids in those grade levels than they do. So all those factors go into how many kids you can bring in at any given time. And, you know, I think what we all agree on here, while we may disagree that maybe this isn't moving as quickly as some people would like, I mean, all of us want kids in school and we all want them there safely. And that's what we're striving for. We have some community information and some impact now on schools that is making that difficult as these numbers increase exponentially in our communities and across the state. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All right, so I'll go. I have questions. I'll state the obvious. Susan, you spoke of trust. I don't think we have a trust problem. I'm actually amazed at how quickly the culture in this district has changed. I personally didn't think it could happen so quickly. Culture is very tricky and a very difficult thing. It might be the most difficult thing to change in an organization. So credit to everybody in this Zoom call and all of your teammates and partners through the way. It's been an amazing change in a very short amount of time. And you know, as I look around, almost none of you were here for the last organization and leadership. And so it's quite a bit of change, and it's been great. So I think there's a level of trust and there's definitely a level of partnership. I think, you know, I'll just state the obvious. There's no right side of the fence to be on, right? Like, you're wrong every single thing you do, or you're right it's a lose-lose situation. Absolutely. You put the kids in too quick and you run about of COVID, and parents are pissed at you. You're not put the kids in school quick enough, and parents are pissed at you. So I don't know the answer. I know it's a puzzle, and I will challenge you to continue to challenge you to solve the puzzle creatively, knowing that we have some staffing constrictions, knowing that we have pods that we want to kind of maintain, but we might have to think differently about some of this stuff. And that's what I'm going to challenge you on. And I guess I'd like to see a plan for all the kids to go back to school. I'd like to see a plan for it. I'm not saying we're going to implement it, but we don't have a plan. We have parts of a plan that rely on reevaluation at the next stage, but we don't know what the next stage is. So I would really like to see a full plan, because honestly, if we don't make any adjustments and we just let the disease control us, our kids are not going back to school, period. If we don't make an adjustment to our cohort, we will never get the kids back in school. This whole year is gone, done. Kids at home all year long. And if we try to bring them back 1 day a week or 2 days a week just to check off the box of putting our kids in school, I agree with those parents who are opting out of it, because they're getting more face-to-face time over Zoom than they would be asynchronously. And so I would really like to see a back-to-school plan for 100% of the children for the January, February timeframe. And if it doesn't come to fruition because of the circumstances, we can certainly adjust, but I'd like to see a plan and challenge you to be creative about how maybe groups get split up. Maybe we increase our cohort sizes by a couple. Maybe half a grade is in the cafeteria with a proxy while the other half a grade is upstairs in a learning environment, and then they switch like a study hall. Like, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios that I'd like to see explored along the way. Anyone else care to chime in?
Are you talking about, Greg, doing all this and still providing a remote option for all grades?
For those that
choose to, I mean, I don't know at what point does that expire? You know, we all go back to school, or at what point do we still have to provide that online option for parents that choose that path?
Right, that'll have to be part of the plan. I think Cindy had a
Yeah, I have a question. I've been reading a lot of research knowing that this was on the agenda, and a lot of it suggests that there's little to no transmission in schools of the virus, and that, you know, some are suggesting that there's little evidence that the hybrid model is safer than a full return to school. That doesn't sound like the experience I'm hearing from you. You're talking about a Swiss cheese school where classes are shut down and people are sent home. Is that true? But when you look at that coronavirus dashboard, it looks like very few students have the virus.
So our experience has been, I want to try to state this sort of globally. Our experience has been around people bringing COVID to school.
Yeah, that's what the research sort of says.
Yeah, that's been our experience. And then in following DHHS and CDC guidance, and my team in particular will really be happy to hear me say this one more time, that, Greg, the problem with the creativity is it's a math problem. I mean, as long as I have to adhere to social distancing requirements and on buses and in classrooms, I'm confronted with a different set of parameters than these schools were built for. They weren't built for 6-foot distancing between people in a class and you know, whether we go wall to wall, which some districts have done, and say it's 18 or 15 or whatever. That's not what they were built for. That's not what our transportation budgets were built on. And so it becomes at some point a math problem. Now, you know, there are districts that got around, that's the wrong way to characterize it, that worked with that math problem by putting desk shields on every desk in every classroom, right? And so they were able to safely, within their insurance guidelines, squeeze that 6-foot distance down to more of the 4 to 6, right? Which insurance carriers don't recommend unless you, because it's not CDC guidance and all those kinds of things. So there are ways to do some of those, but some of those places have added more buses, many more buses. Some of those places have made all that purchasing, which went well beyond what we were going to get in federal funding that then fell through, or that we're going to get now in the state funding. So those were pretty serious commitments of budget. So, I mean, yeah, can there be a plan? Sure, the plan is going to have this list of caveats. This list of things or expenses that would have to come with it to do that. And so, if that's what you're suggesting, that can be done. We did some of that early on, and some of those numbers were pretty daunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely understandable. There's going to have to be some of that.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I didn't completely answer Cindy's question. I'm sorry, I got to go back. So most of it's been brought in, but then what we end up doing, because DHHS, quite frankly, can't contact trace anymore. They've pretty much admitted that. They've said that other than schools, they're really not doing much of it at all because there's so much community spread. And I'm here to tell you tonight that they're actually not doing it in schools either. Okay, we're left to do it. So we have to figure out that when I'm making this up from another school, when that second grade, mother of a second grader calls us and says, my daughter who was last in school last Monday before Thanksgiving, gee, by Thursday she wasn't feeling well and she tested positive. We have to go back and say, well, unless we're going to figure out who she was around in that first grade class, which is probably everybody, or second grade class. So then we got to figure out, is it certain kids? Are we shutting down the class? That's the teacher. What does that mean to other pieces of the school? If it's somebody in a particular role that services the entire school, like a nurse or a guidance counselor who's not strictly in one cohort, that causes a different set of problems. So yeah, it's been brought into school. Now, do we have situations where we then have people in those cohorts that then test positive? Yes. So we have to assume, right, because it's within that time frame, that they contracted it from that second grader I just talked about, right? But we're ending up doing all that now. And so, right, it creates Swiss cheese. I had Seabrook Elementary School completely out. I had one first grade class at Hampton Falls, one second grade class, and the entire 7th through 8th grade. I had 2 or 3 classes out at your school, right? I had certain parts of special education cohort shut down at the high school because of people testing positive. That's what we're doing every day. Every day.
Those limitations sound like they would affect every school in the state. It doesn't sound like any school would be able to.
That's probably true.
Like, is there
some
any?
of them, but some of them, contrary to what some of our high school parents continue to tell me when they write to me about all the schools that are open, I can give you quite a list of schools that, for just this reason, said we're closing between Thanksgiving and the middle of January, and they did. Many schools.
Yeah.
Shut down for that 6-week period of time, went remote, saying, we're not going to do all this. This is not going to be possible to keep up with because of all the community spread that's going to happen as a result of those holidays. We chose not to do that, and that's fine. I agree with that. I mean, I didn't recommend it that we do that kind of shutdown. I recommend that we stay in session, but it means we're gonna do that all through this period of time until, as Beth says, we get to be too much Swiss cheese and we just pull the plug.
I think one of the things, Greg, that I guess I feel like we may have talked about this last time, so at the risk of repeating myself, I think one of the things that as educators we're finding problematic is that we're really committed to the quality of the instruction, and we'd be really worried about satellite classes without the certified educator conducting the class. And we've seen different scenarios where, kids could be they could physically be someplace, but it doesn't mean they're learning. And, we really believe that we can continue the positive learning and have kids come back. And I think it's really going to require some changes in the circumstances, which I'm hopeful that we start to have with the vaccine coming, with, we get through a phase of the pandemic where the cases start to go down. I mean, we want nothing more than to have all the kids back under our roof. And the challenges associated with all of this are, and I think I said this too last month too, that we have a schedule that we'd love to be able to run that gives the kids all the things that they had before. But the reality is that I believe the reason that we are open right now with the grades that we have is because we've been able to contain cohorts and group sizes in a way that's kept people safe. And we need a chance to get the middle schoolers in and see how we can make it run with them. There are developmental differences. I think a lot of times folks think that the older kids are better positioned for some of the procedures that you might put in place, when in fact, developmentally, their need for interactions might be even stronger, or physical proximity might be even stronger than the littlest kids. So, when we're working on social distancing and mask wearing and things that they haven't had to contend with being at home, I think that there will be an adjustment to that part too. So we really do feel that we're on the right track, and that we're really hopeful about getting kids back, but we want to make sure that we plan carefully. We want to make sure that we take things like in the correct order of steps, so that we don't open up and then have to close. And as I said, I think we have a good plan. I know it's not what folks may want at the moment, but it's on the step, it's on the road. And we'd like to give it a try. And as I said, we hope that we have the faith and trust of the community and of the board, in knowing that we have these same interests. We're on the same team. We have the same goals. And we'd like to get there together in the safest way we can with the least amount of learning loss. And this is like the backbone of what we've put forth from our perspective as educators.
Yeah, and we totally appreciate that. And we all want the kids back in school. What I hear is that until it's a perfect, this is how I'm processing it, until the situation is very, very favorable for learning, we're going to take small steps. And the situation is not going to be favorable, right? It's not going to be favorable till this year is done. And so I don't have a crystal ball, but it sure is looking this way. And if we don't say, hey, look, I'm just using examples, right? Okay, the cafeteria isn't a great learning experience or learning environment. Yep, we all recognize that. But neither is a beanbag downstairs on the couch, or with a laptop in a bedroom someplace. Like, the learning experiences, I would think, would be much better in school, under the guidance of the school, the administration, EAs, proxies, however, than at home. And I hear continually from all the educators that the best educational environment is in the school. And I hear continually from teachers that they want to be in the school. And so when I hear things like we're waiting for a vaccine and teachers are going to be on the list right away, it makes me concerned. There's plenty of people working out there in exposed situations, much more exposed situations than teachers. And so this notion that the endangerment to everybody, I feel like is fear factor sometimes. And I don't want to come off insensitive. Like I said, there's no right way to have this conversation, because I'm going to look like a jerk anyway. So I'm just going to lay it out there. I feel like the pace is extremely, extremely, extremely conservative. And I appreciate the notion for making sure it's safe. And I'm not suggesting we don't make it safe. But if we wait for the perfect scenario, the school year will be done because it's going to take a long time to get back to normal. So we have to broaden our scope of what our cohorts look like, what our classroom experience might look like. Maybe there's a study hall going while another grade is being taught, and they switch and they maintain the safety levels, but it's different than sitting at home.
I just feel the need to say here, Greg, there is not a school district in Rockingham County that has more kids in than we do. So I'm a bit bothered by what you just said, because it makes it sound like we've gone too slow. We've not brought kids in when we should have, and whatever. We have more kids in than other districts in Rockingham County, right? Pretty much to the district, right? And we've presented plans in all of our other districts to bring in the kids in the grade levels where we don't have them in now. So, maybe it's not as fast as some people would like us to do. Guilty as charged, right? But we've tried to err on the side of the safety precautions. We've checked in with your insurance agents and your legal counsel to make sure we're not violating your liability as a district in doing that, which we think is prudent to do. And the only reason I made the comment about the vaccine is because I have colleagues who said today, as they're beginning to talk about where these vaccines may be distributed, and some people who are more tuned into this issue or sit on committees of where teachers may fall on that, is it begins to open up some of the roadblocks that we face. It's true, there's not even been testing done with children yet, right? So we're not going to see that, but it does remove or does make certain pieces of concern, and maybe changes some of those CDC parameters that we have to deal with now. Maybe if we have certain percentage of our population, staff, older students vaccinated, there's probably going to be change in those protocols and procedures, which opens up some of these other things. I just continue to go back to, and poor David and Caroline and Matt have heard me say from the beginning, this has been a math problem from the beginning, and people continue to ask me to do something that the math problem doesn't allow. Hasn't allowed. You can't say, keep 6 foot between these people, make them wear masks, don't put more than 13 to 15 people on a bus, but we want you to bring all the kids back to school. It doesn't work. It's not a math problem you can solve in that way. And so we've tried to develop workarounds. We've tried to develop work-throughs. The idea that we're being challenged to be creative, I've not seen people be more creative than I've seen teachers and principals and other people be in the last 6 months. Ever, in 25 years. So I understand the frustration. I'm frustrated too, and I've been getting certainly my dose of it from other districts in particular. But we're going to keep trying to bring kids in. We're going to keep testing those issues of when there's going to be vaccines, those kinds of things, what the CDC protocol mean, what we can do safely, how many kids we can put on a bus, how many parents are willing to transport their kids. All those things go into that big math formula that we're trying to solve. And I'm sorry if I was overly emotional there. I apologize if I was, but I think people are being very creative and are trying very hard to solve this very complicated problem and to bring kids back into buildings, because we know I get email every day from parents who are expressing exactly what you've just said about their kids and the learning environment at home. And while we continue to say, for example, at the high school, that we're able to, provide those synchronous experiences, in this remote schedule, it's not the same as being able to bring kids into buildings. And of course we want to do that, but we're gonna absolutely do it safely. And we're going to continue to, I'm not going to be challenged to be creative. These people have been creative and they're going to continue to try to be creative.
And I think one thing, the reason that I kind of opened up with my comment about what my role is I'm working really hard to to protect the students' learning. And so when we have these discussions around safely bringing students back in, I'm always asking myself, can we do this and not incur an unacceptable loss in their learning? And I have not found, and you know, Greg, you mentioned scenarios that we have had conversations about in depth and many, many times over. And I firmly believe that the education that our middle school students are receiving in this environment is the best that they can receive under this situation. The other models simply will not provide the same quality of education, the same engagement, the same time of instruction. And dealing with the recoveries from the spring learning losses, we have a big boulder to push. And I know that Susan shared the STAR data. I was really proud of that. I was really proud of the work the teachers have done. That's a nationally normed exam. And the fact that our students scored so high, I have to be honest with you, the other districts that I have worked at, I've never had 8th graders score, that many of them be proficient or more. So I think we're doing an extraordinary job. I think the teachers are doing an extraordinary job. And I'm very concerned about that we'll be incurring learning losses. And we have to think about what we're willing to do for that. Like, how much are we willing to for the students to lose, and that in order to have them more in the building, assuming that we can do so safely. So that's kind of where that's my strong voice in this argument, as we all sit around a table socially distanced or on Zoom and try and problem solve this, because we do visit the question often.
Yeah. Not an argument, a discussion. So I'm not meaning to turn it into an argument.
No, I'm sorry. Argument meaning we all, like as a group, like myself and Susan, and we'll bring a teacher in and we'll talk this through. So when I said argument, I meant amongst our admin team.
So when you say learning loss, is it the learning loss that you think is going to happen by bringing the kids back into school in a less than favorable fashion?
Well, so it depends on the model that you consider, which learning losses I would be speaking to. So for example, a key concern that we have with the satellite option is that basically the versions of that I've seen have a teacher's teaching to students in front of her in a classroom, and then another group of students in a separate space watching on, like, usually it would be on a large screen and being kept safe and by an EA, for example, in that space. And so the students that are in the room receiving the instruction are receiving an authentic, quality, engaging experience. But the students that are in the gym are basically watching the class be taught. And there's really no way for a teacher to be able to do both at the same time. It's like driving a car and playing Mario Kart. You can't do both at the same time. You're focused on and living in your classroom, or you have this narrow experience engaging all the students that you're working with. So it's not really possible to do both. So the students that are left in the cafeteria are just watching other students being taught and trying to absorb what they can. But the engagement, learning science tells us, with that reduced engagement, they're not going to be learning very much. And I wouldn't want my child in that cafeteria, to be honest with you. I would rather they be here in a situation like this with the teacher engaging them. That this type of having teaching through a screen, we call it basically like just dissolving the screen. So there are teaching practices that our teachers engage with their students that allow the students to be engaged in this format. And that's not the same teaching practices that exist when you're in a classroom with students. So those are the types of things that concern me very much.
Can I ask you a question then? Because I hear you saying, what I get from parents is my kid doesn't have to turn the screen on. And what I heard from teachers, especially when it kind of high school, is that they're teaching to blank screens, a whole bunch of Brady Bunch blackouts, and that it's very challenging not only for the teacher, but that a lot of the kids are disengaged.
I have heard that at the high school level, and not just at Winnacunnet, but at other schools. I have a lot of colleagues that work across the state, so I understand what you're speaking of. We're not seeing that at Northampton School. We're not. Our teachers are not teaching to blank screens. We have engagement. We have learning taking place.
I mean, can I just jump in with, because I've had the opportunity observe lessons, to observe virtual lessons. And, you know, uh, the the creative use of breakout rooms and the use of engagement strategies that are specific to online learning are really impressive at Northampton. I mean, I've been in, um, you know, a social studies class where kids were paired off and um, they had to solve problems based on constitutional arguments, and they they were in pairs, and they had to solve a problem, and then they got brought back into the bigger group. And you know, I've been in ELA classes where they're discussing novels in small group, where they're, you know, they're together and then they're out, and they get popped in and out, and they have no choice but to be in but to engage with their peers and with the teacher. And so some of the structures are are really effective. I know folks maybe not don't see it that way, but it really is the case that there's a lot of effective teaching strategies that the Northampton middle school teachers are using, that we do believe are allowing them to continue to teach the curriculum as it's or at least the the content as it's designed. And you know, if we don't want to we don't want to be teaching less.
And also in meetings that I've had for students that were either referred or have special education IEPs and things like that, there's something to be said that the kids, when they're in those breakouts, they're actually more likely to be self-advocates for themselves, and they're more likely, and they have it more likely to participate. And a lot of parents have heard in the progress meetings that we've had, compensatory education services meetings that we have, that their students are actually, you know, typing in the chat that they need extra help, that they may not have done so last year before COVID and you know, the remote learning. So the synchronous remote learning has given some students that might not usually speak out in the regular classroom forum the opportunity to do so.
The last thing I'd like to just add is I really don't believe that the year is a loss. I believe that things will be getting better. I believe that you know, we have teachers that are so committed to their connections with kids and so committed to keeping Northampton School the wonderful place that it is, that you know, I definitely envision an end of the year where, you know, a third trimester where we're hopefully we're all back there. I mean, that's our goal, and getting there is the challenge. And getting there together and making sure that we support one another so that we keep this school community the strong and positive place that it is, I think is really important to me personally. But you know, I am not, I don't consider the year a wash at all. I think we're on a journey, and I think I'm hopeful.
I'm hopeful too, but I'm pessimistic about it.
Well, I'll be optimistic for you.
Yes. A journey is a nice word. I think a lot of people are fed up with the journey, and perhaps I apologize if I came off a little too strong there. But you know, the more we talk, because we don't talk frequently, but the more we do talk, you know, the more insights we're able to get in a deeper understanding. I hear, and maybe it's a perception thing as well, because what I hear a lot in all the meetings I go to is why we can't do this stuff. We don't hear the positive things. Like Rebecca, yours was very helpful to hear that, the level of detail, because I think it doesn't come through any other time, and perhaps we should be speaking more frequently, but it's helpful to understand that. I still would like to see a plan, so I'll be optimistic here. I'd like a glasses half full plan that if everything goes swimmingly, here's our cadence. And so not to be implemented, I mean, it would be nice if we could, but a plan that lays it out. Here's the plan, and by February 15th, we're all back in school. By March, we're all back in school. We know things will change. We know it's a fluid situation, but I think without a plan, it feels like it's, and I don't want to be careless with my words, but it feels like it's a little more ad hoc and being made up as we go along than I'm comfortable with, and some people are comfortable with. So a longer term plan, I think, would be helpful for a lot of us and a lot of the community. And then obviously implementation will depend on circumstance. Thank you again for the time and indulging the conversation. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, I got a quick question actually for Sue. Given the situation that Northampton has been in already with cases and classrooms closings and all that stuff, I worry for this reason, maybe having a plan is great, but what is the morale at the school? How are the teachers reacting? Are they worried? Are they worried about coming back once they do get exposed? And I mean, I live in a household of possibly a high risk people, and it isn't a comfortable situation all the time. So I wonder if, as we move forward and say, okay, we're going to open up February 15th, are we going to start losing people? And if those teachers are feeling comfortable and safe where they work, I think that's kind of where we need to take this. They need to feel safe. And if they are not, we're going to run into more of a math problem, I think, than we can probably foresee today.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing that up, Nermina, because I think that is part of the balancing act is, you know, we want our kids in, but we want them in with their teachers. And if their teachers aren't able to be in school, either because of health reasons or because of, you know, whatever risk factors are within their families, because we've, you know, have too many students in one place, or, you know, they're not feeling safe, then we have a problem. And so I do believe that teachers feel safe at the moment. I think that that the cohorts that we have and the way the group sizes have been established are acceptable. That said, I know that many of them worry a lot. They worry either about bringing the virus home to someone. They worry about we do have teachers that, you know, have conditions themselves. And we do have teachers that are taking care of others. We have teachers with very young children. We have teachers with elderly family members that they see or they want to see. And, you know, some of them have made real sacrifices in order to be at school and to teach. And so I think it's absolutely on our list of really important things to find the right balance so that everyone feels safe. Like we want kids to feel safe, and their teachers need to feel safe at school. So it's you know, as Dr. Lupini said, you know, we teeter in some ways, we teeter with the virus and the community and it coming into the school. But I think that sense of security is being challenged right now with the increase in cases both locally and nationally. I think it's been very unsettling. And as you see, like the high school had to slow their plan down. So I think it's in the front of a lot of people's minds for sure, and this on the staff. I mean, would you, Aisha and Becca, would you agree, or do you have something to add?
No, I think that you summed that up pretty well. I mean, it's definitely conversations that we hear happening a lot in the building. People have been coming to us with a lot of, you know, if then types of questions. So it's certainly on everyone's mind.
I mean, as an example, we've made more of those KN95 masks available to all staff because I think teachers were pretty comfortable with the cloth masks that they were wearing from home, and with this recent increase in cases again locally and nationally, they're really feeling like they'd like that extra layer of protection. So we do have a decent number of N95 masks that we actually, Nurse Mara went around and passed them out to anybody that asked for them today. We've, the PPE part is important, and that's an area where we will overspend on the lines, just so you know, with the budget, if Matt doesn't keep finding money for us. Those are things that help, and we do believe that wearing the masks does help mitigate the spread of the virus, but the people are worried. Yes.
I mean, I know we all want our kids at school. I want my child at school. He's in 6th grade. I am more than happy of education, given the circumstances, being at home, being online on the schedule that he keeps every day, and the things that they do the best they can. The 6th grade team, I pop in every now and then when I work from home to see how they're doing. And I have been very happy with what he has been getting day in and day out. But and I chose to send him in. Thank you, Kelly Ford. Big shout out to Kelly Ford. She's been making phone calls to me twice now for that survey. I will send him to school because I feel like it's important for him to do that. I want him in school, of course, but at the same time, I feel like given this uptick and the cases and classroom closings and affecting our school and our community and our parents, and I have friends that are going into quarantine for the 2nd time or maybe the 3rd time and going, really? It's I think even people and parents and community are going to start weighing out some of these things and doing it the safe way. When you get locked up for 2 weeks at a time for the 3rd time, it's not fun.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to item 7, new business. We have a policy first read. I'm assuming this is a big batch of new policies that we're trying to get in alignment with the SAU and the NOHE.
Yes, it's a group that came out of the last policy subcommittee meeting, which was held in November, Caroline?
That's right.
Yeah, November. Chief among them that you certainly want to pay attention to all of them, but you certainly want to pay attention to the Title IX policy, which is meant to comply with new regulations around Title IX and sex discrimination, sexual assault investigations that are promulgated by the U.S. Department of Education. So this is considered a first read. The second read is usually done at a joint board meeting, which would be in January.
Any questions? So could you just clarify what's the section underneath says policies for withdrawal? Are those the ones that are going to be replaced?
Yes, there are some that are withdrawn because they get replaced by some of these. That's right.
Okay.
Can I ask you how you want our comments on these?
You can really contact us at any point. We're just starting through the first reads tonight with Southampton and Northampton. They won't come up for a vote until January. So if you have particular questions, you can just email us and we can get back to you or take your questions and distribute answers to everyone.
Okay.
Thanks.
Many of those policies are under my purview. Feel free to ask anything.
All right, section 8, written reports, administrative reports. Ms. Snyder, as it's written on the agenda.
So we've already talked about some of the things that were in the written report. One of the things I did want to mention is we did have a gratitude share video that was put together by Ms. Vaz and Mr. Guidi. Family sent in pictures and kids with signs, and it was really sweet. We sent it home to families right before Thanksgiving. A lot of pets, a lot of kids very grateful for their pets. I saw there were lots of dog pictures, lots of cat pictures. It was very sweet and very cute. So we really appreciated that. And Kayla talked to you about the Veterans Day work. That was really impressive. And the veterans that they interviewed, in addition to Officer Pops, they interviewed Mr. Barry, who is the student government president, Chris Barry's grandfather, and also Mrs. McAllister, who's an EA in our building, and she's a veteran. And I think a lot of kids wouldn't have known that. And they asked some really cute questions, like what was the worst food you had when you were serving, and what was the, best food you had, things like that, that were really kind of kid friendly. So I think that the two noteworthy things are report cards that are coming up. So that the end of the trimester is tomorrow, and report card teachers will be getting report cards together for parents to view. And for this year, for this first trimester and for the rest of the year, report cards for all grades K-8 will be available on the Power School parent portal. And so, as Nermina was saying, Kelly's been doing lots of calls. So she made a lot of phone calls to help parents get their parent portal set up so that they'll be poised to just open it up and be able to see their child's progress report. We won't be printing them and we won't be mailing them unless folks specifically request that because of technical difficulties that they might have. But that we believe that parents are pretty much set up with the parent portal, and they'll be set to be able to view the report cards online beginning on December 14th. And then I had just put, at the time that I wrote this, we hadn't had COVID cases in November. And then of course now we ended up with a few. So we have two classrooms that are receiving remote instruction at this time. One of them will be back on Monday and the other one will be back on Wednesday. And there's 5 staff members associated with those quarantines too. There's no change in enrollment this month. The enrollment stayed the same. And actually, in fact, too, we are not reabsorbing any students from the RLA in the end in grades K-5. So that the students that were in the RLA Academy are staying in RLA. So there's no impact to the K-5 classes for trimester 2. And that's it. Questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Sue?
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is finance reports.
Thank you. So included on board docs is the monthly year-to-date expenditure and monthly year-to-date revenue reports. I do want to take them. There have been no significant changes from last month. We are tracking well, both from an expenditure side and revenue side. I do want to touch upon some a revenue source via the CARES Act. So as I had previously reported back in May of this year, the SAU did receive some ESSER funds. So that's elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. That was based on Title I funding. So Northampton only received just over $14,000 at that point. However, since then, there's been more recent funding opportunities. The state of New Hampshire did announce a supplemental public school response fund. That's a total of $45 million across the entire state. It allows or provides for $200 per student in funding. And this was really designed to provide relief and support for all of these unanticipated costs that are associated with COVID and school operations. So these costs that that Susan alluded to earlier in regard to PPE, we have software costs, costs with with various infrastructure, with with the tents and cleaning, and air filters. There's a plethora of expenditures that are related to COVID. So that translates to $65,800 for Northampton. We did receive those funds, and those funds are treated as offsetting revenue. So you won't see that reflected on the expenditure report. That's on the revenue report. However, we are required to associate those funds with qualifying expenditures that we have incurred from the beginning of the pandemic in March to December 30th of this year. And these are costs, they are only qualifying if they're new costs. So it can't be expenditures that we had budgeted for. It can't be any expenditures that were covered from a different funding source or different grant or funding source. And really a significant portion of these expenditures are items that we had originally earmarked for FEMA reimbursement. So as you recall, we were pre-approved or preliminarily approved for FEMA reimbursement for COVID-related costs, but FEMA since rescinded that funding and determined that schools are not eligible for FEMA funds. So many of those expenditures are now falling into this category for the very easy acronym SBSRFF for the supplemental funding. So just for your reference, some of these expenditures include mobile hotspots, some MacBooks, sanitizer supplies, decals directing students in how to go down hallways, water fountain lockout kits, sneeze guards, cordless foggers, hand sprayers, desk barriers, air filters, disinfection solution, privacy curtains, hand sanitizer, our tents, some software licenses, masks, and other PPE and disinfecting supplies. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have from a financial perspective.
Any questions for Matt on this? Matt, I have a financial related question, but it has more to do with our budget that we're preparing to submit.
Sure.
And Tom was not able to be here tonight, but we chatted earlier, and he asked me to bring up the line item of smart boards, which BudCom seems to be pushing back on, and is sort of viewing it as a nice to have, but not have to have. And so we recognize that we have a pretty flat budget this season, and we wanted to take the opportunity to include these in there. And so I think, as Tom and I talked, what might be helpful, Sue and Matt, is to, and maybe this is more you, Sue, but to sort of, we got to kind of sell the business need for the smart boards to the BudCom, who is very conservative this year given the circumstances. And so some help would be helpful if you could help us make a case for it and lay out some detailed explanation of the benefit of these smart boards so we can present it to BudCom. Matt, we also obviously know about the cost of this product and incurring them over an amortized sort of point of view rather than pushing them all into one season of spending. Part of that as well. So some support there, and just kind of lay it out for the BudCom committee.
Yeah, so this is actually a 2-year expenditure or purchasing plan, and we're actually supplementing this via the technology trust. I did provide some detail to the budget committee on the smart boards, but I'd be happy to sit down with Susan remotely, and we'll come together with some additional information and data points that we can provide to the budget committee. I'm meeting with them on Monday night for the final review session. So yeah, and to Tom's point, there was question. There was also from two of the members of the budget committee. There was also a member that was supportive. So I'm uncertain exactly how it's going to lean, but I think we do need to err on the side of providing a justification and as much information to sell these smart boards, because it really is important. And when we're providing a budget that's actually a reduction from last year, I do think that it's a compelling reason to this very little investment when we're looking at an overall budget I think is very appropriate.
So, and as we said, Matt can, we can give you something with more details in writing, but I think just for one of the most compelling reasons from our perspective is that we have some projectors that are in need of replacement. So even if you just replaced a projector with a like a TV monitor, which is what we would probably do at this point, that would be super wasteful. So we would still have to spend money. We could spend less money on something that then we would want to discard a year later. So that seemed really wasteful to get. So in other words, we would probably use like a flat screen TV as a monitor to replace a projection device that we have, like a ceiling mounted projector. And that would be obsolete as soon as you replace it with the smart board, which is interactive. So it actually, there's an offset to it that actually, makes it less wasteful. If that makes sense. That might not have made sense because I didn't do a very good job of explaining it, but maybe Matt could say it better, but we'll write it to you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to throw bad money
Right.
for good money. I mean, I did provide that explanation to the budget committee, but I think it does not hurt to take another look and see if we can provide some more robust justification on that item.
There's also the professional development component of it. So when we, as a systems thinking, as we all learn to become proficient users of smart boards, it's much more effective if we're all doing that together and not bringing in 1 year at a time people to come in and be trained. And we found that really hurts the effectiveness of the professional development and our growth as a school with that piece of technology.
Yeah, all these are valuable pieces of information for them. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on finance? All right, moving on. Section 9 personnel. We have a retirement. We were talking about that in non-public. Our next meeting dates are the SAU 21 Joint Board meeting is Thursday, December 17th at 6 o'clock. OC meeting on Tuesday, January 5th. And our next school board meeting will be in the new year on January 7th. And I think next we'll move to non-public. Do I have a motion? It's in your board docs.
I'll make a motion to go non-public.
Can you just state the RSA? Do you see it in your board docs, Normina?
Mm-hmm. I don't see it in my board docs. Roll call. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Motion to enter non-public session under RSA 91-A3(2).
Do you have a second?
Second.
Roll call. Can we take a roll call vote?
Cindy Burke,
Sorry, here, yes.
Greg Duffy,
Yes.
Martin Tabishian,
Yes.
and Normina Peterson.
Yes.
Vote taken.
everybody comfortable with the process of non-public for Zoom? Have we done this? Has everybody done this?
Yeah, but I think you remind us, do we log out and then jump back on?
Yeah, Deb's going to keep this meeting open for the attendees who are there. You've all received an email from me with a different Zoom link. What I'll do is open that meeting up. We'll all join that meeting. It'll represent the non-public. When we're finished there, we will come back here to this meeting and we'll motion to come out of non-public. So I'll start that meeting up right now.
And I'm ducking out. David and Matt and Caroline and Susan will handle the retirements.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Good night. Thank you. Ashley Haas just got promoted to the school board. Hey, Ashley, welcome. We're gonna kick you back onto the attendee list here in a second.
And Missy.
Who's bringing people in? Is that you, Dave, or is it Deb?
It is not. It's Deb. Deb, are you there?
Yes, I did it by accident. I apologize. Give me 1 second.
That's okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to put her. Dave, I'm going to make you co-host. You
Sure.
can help me.
Not that we don't want you here, Ashley. It's just
There's actually two. There's two.
process. Oh, and Miss Eaton's joining us as well.
I don't know how to put him back, Dave.
I don't see them right now.
Patricia Yeaton.
Yeah, there's one more.
Ah, got it. All right.
Sorry about that.
No problem. All right. So we need a motion to come out of non-public.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the non-public session and resume the public meeting.
Second.
1 second, 8:15 p.m. Martin, you were the second?
Yes.
Okay, Cindy Burke,
Yes.
Greg Duffy,
Yes.
Martin Tavishian,
Yes.
Nermina Peterson.
Yes.
Vote taken.
Okay. And in section 12, resuming of the public meeting, do I have a motion to accept these retirements? I think each one is individual in there.
Yeah, it looks like it's individual. I'll make a motion to accept the retirement of Patricia Yeaton effective June 30th, 2021.
Second that.
Cindy Burke,
Yes.
Greg Duffy,
Yes.
Martin Tavishian,
Yes.
Nermina Peterson.
Yes.
Vote taken.
All right. Nermina, go for it. Run the table.
All right, let's make a motion to accept the retirement of Denise Pasden effective June 30th, 2021.
Second it.
Cindy Burke,
Yes.
Greg Duffy,
Yes.
Martin Tavishian,
Yes.
and Nermina Peterson.
Yes.
Vote taken.
And lastly, we'll make a motion to accept the retirement of Linda Hubert effective June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Cindy Burke,
Yes.
Greg Duffy,
Yes.
Martin Tavishian,
Yes.
Nermina Peterson.
Yes.
Vote taken.
All right. Thank you. And we will sadly say goodbye to 3 friendly faces who have been in Northampton for quite a long time and have been part of a lot of stuff that's evolved through the years. So we're sad to see them go, but best wishes, and we're all a little bit envious that you're retiring. So we'll get there. We'll all get there
I was
soon.
just going to also add our thanks, administrative thank you to all 3 teachers for their service and special thanks for hanging in for the rest of this year.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, that brings us to the end. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second. Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.